So we're looking at the CRUD operations with the emp table, and the first one that we're going to have a look at is the retrieve option. Now, if you visualize the employee table, what we're really trying to do here is we want to pull all the information from the emp table out and display it. And in our sitemap, that basically means we're going to have this. So we'll start off by just quickly looking at emp main.php, which, as I've explained previously, is just going to be a collection of links, like a menu, and you'll click on the menu and it will take you to each of these different operations. And then we'll have a look at emp retrieve.php. So here's the emp main, and if you have a look at the bottom of the HTML, you can see we've basically got links through to the 4 emp pages. We're going to view all the people, delete a person, insert a person, and then we're going to update a person. And we're going to have a look at the first one here, which is view all employees. So emp retrieve.php. So emp main, if we actually bring it up in a browser, looks like this. And it really is simply a list of links, like a little menu that we have. View all employees, delete an employee, insert an employee, update an employee, like that. So we'll go to emp retrieve then, the first one. Let's imagine you click on that. What is it that we actually want emp retrieve to do? Well, it's going to be this. First thing we'll do is we'll create a connection from the web server to the database. And we'll have those connection variables that we've used before, and we'll import our database library. Then we'll put our SQL statement together. We'll send it off to the database and get the results back, and then we print the results out. That's the sequence. So let's just go through those. Create the connection variable and import the database library. Well, we've seen this before. For the sort of wrapper function code that we're using, which is in database.php, we have to supply 4 pieces of information using these names. So we have to know the name of the MySQL server. Now, if you're using MAMP, then it's going to be localhost 3306. That's MAMP on a PC. If you remember, there's a slightly different port number. It's 8889 if you're on a Mac. If you're using the university web server, then you have to have different values, which we've talked about previously. I've got username root, password root, and then I've got the name of the database. Now, my database is simply called StudentDB because I just put all the tables into the one database. Obviously, you have to change those values to match your particular setup. And then we have that include statement. And what that does is that links in the database file so we can use the routines in that library file. So make sure that you place database.php in the same folder as this file and the other files that you'll be creating. So that creates the connection. Next up, we have to create our SQL, and then we get our result back from the database. Now, our SQL is simply going to be a string, and we can use any name we like for that. It's going to be a variable. It's going to look something like this. So I'm going to use the variable SQL in capital letters, but it doesn't matter what name you choose. You can choose any name you like. If you wanted to call it SQL string, that would be fine. And the SQL itself, to actually get the information from the table, is pretty straightforward because it's select star from emp. And what we do with that SQL string is we pass it into the use database function. So we put it in brackets, and if you look at the penultimate line at the end, you can see that $SQL just goes into use database, and what it does is it returns a result. And what this library does is, if it's a select statement, it returns result, and it rather nicely just wraps it up into an HTML table. So we don't have to worry about any formatting. All we really have to do is print the result out. So $result is going to be the thing that's going to contain our HTML, and so we simply print it out like that. So that's the PHP code that's needed for this emp retrieve file. So to go through it again, we're going to create a connection to the database. We're going to use our library file. We're going to use some SQL to actually get all the information from the table. We send that SQL off to the database, and we get our result back, and then we simply print the result out. Now, there's some other bits of HTML that go in here to do with headers, bodies and stuff like that. So it looks like that. And the only other thing that I've really got down here is a paragraph at the bottom with a link that basically says return to main menu. So it takes you back to that main page that we've created. So you can click on show me all the people, you can look at all the people that's printed out in the table, and then you can click on the link to go back to the main menu. And that's what it looks like when you run that. You can see we've got all the particular columns from the emp table, and we've got a nice little link there, return to main menu, just tucked away at the bottom of the screen.